We continue now at the top of Daf Kuf Yud Aleph Amud Aleph Mesechet Kesuvos. This is Kesuvos Daf 111a. The Gemara continues quoting a pasuk from Yirmiyahu, Bavel Yuvo v'Shamayu ad Yom Pakdi Osam Noam Hashem. The pasuk says that they should go down to Bavel in exile, and they should stay there until they're brought out. And from there, Rav Yehuda learns out that a person shouldn't leave Bavel and go up to Eretz Yisrael. Rather, he should remain in exile. For Rabbi Zera, and what does Rabbi Zera do with that pasuk? Ahu b'chlei shares ksiv. That pasuk is talking about the kelim of the Beis HaMikdash, that those are supposed to remain in Bavel. For Rav Yehuda, and Rav Yehuda will respond to Rabbi Zera ksiv kra achrina, that there's another pasuk. The pasuk in Shir Hashirim says, Hishbati eschem benos Yerushalayim b'tzvaos v'ailos asada. It says, I'm going to give you an oath by the gazelles and by the hinds of the field that you shouldn't awaken and you shouldn't go back to Eretz Yisrael. So he learns from that pasuk that there's an idea of staying in Bavel. Rabbi Zera, and Rabbi Zera responds, Ahu shelo yalu Yisrael b'choma. What that means to say is that the Jewish people, they shouldn't go b'choma by the wall. Rashi over here says, shelo yalu b'choma, they shouldn't ascend by the wall. Yachad b'yod chazak, it means they shouldn't go in mass all together into Eretz Yisrael with force. That's what that pasuk is referring to, but it's not referring to an individual who just goes up to Eretz Yisrael. For Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Yehuda responds to Rabbi Zera, Hishbati achrina ksiv. There's actually a very similar pasuk. Another time it says Hishbati in Shir Hashirim. So the double language says even the individual. For Rabbi Zera, and Rabbi Zera responds to that, Ahumi boile, that second time, that's needed for the following. L'chid Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Chanina. It's needed for the teaching of Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Chanina, Do Amar, because he says as follows, Gimel Shvuas Halalu. There's actually 3 psukim that are said in Shir Hashirim that are all similar. These 3 oaths, Lama. What do we need these 3 oaths for? Why does it say it 3 times? Achas shelo yalu Yisrael b'choma. Number 1, like we said, that Klal Yisrael, they shouldn't ascend by the wall. V'achas, and another one, sheishbiya HaKadosh Baruch Hu es Yisrael, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives an oath to Klal Yisrael, shelo yimradu b'umos ha'olam, that they should not rebel against the nations of the world. V'achas, and the final one, sheishbiya HaKadosh Baruch Hu es ovdei kochavim, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives an oath to the idol worshippers, shelo yishtabdu b'hen b'Yisrael yoser midai, that they shouldn't put the Jewish people in too much slavery. For Rav Yehuda, and Rav Yehuda responds, Im ta'iru v'im ta'oru ksiv. The pasuk also says that you shouldn't awaken. That extra language that talks about the idea that we shouldn't go back, that itself also says that we shouldn't go to Eretz Yisrael. For Rabbi Zera, but Rabbi Zera responds, Mi boile lech Rabbi Levi. That's needed for Rabbi Levi, because again, that language of Im ta'iru v'im ta'oru, it's found in all 3 of the psukim. So that's another 3 oaths. The Yomar, and he says as follows. Rabbi Levi says, Sheish Shavuos halalu. What are these 6 Shavuos for? So halalu lama. What are these 6 Shavuos for? Tlasa hani damran. So we already said what 3 of the oaths were. But Enoch, what are the other ones? Number 1, shelo yigalu es haketz. People shouldn't reveal the end of times. V'shelo yirchaku es haketz, and they shouldn't cause the end to be delayed. V'shelo yiglu hasod liovdei kochavim, and that they shouldn't reveal the secrets to the idol worshippers. And Rashi over here says, Im ta'iru v'im ta'oru shtei shavuos b'chol achas. It's actually 2 oaths in every single one of the psukim. That's why it's a total of 6. Shelo yigalu es haketz. They shouldn't reveal the end of days. Neviim shebeinehem, meaning the prophets, they shouldn't reveal the end of days. V'shelo yirchaku es haketz ba'avonim, and they shouldn't distance the end of days by sinning. Lishna achrin, another way of understanding this, shelo yidchaku, not shelo yirchaku with a resh, but shelo yidchaku, they shouldn't push, garsinan. Lashon dochek, shelo yirbu b'tachanun, it means they shouldn't daven too much. Al kach yoser midai, don't daven too much for the end of days, more than is appropriate. V'shelo yiglu es asod, and finally they shouldn't reveal the secret. What is the secret we're referring to? Amri lasod ha'ibor, some say it's the secret of the leap years, of the calendars. V'amri lasod tamei ha'torah, and some say it refers to the secrets of the reasons behind the Torah. And the Gemara continues, B'tzvo, so ba'ailos hasod, it says that the oath will be by the gazelles and the hinds of the field. What does that mean? Amar Rebbe Lazar says, Amar lem HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Klal Yisrael, Imatem mekaymen es hashvu, if you fulfill the oath, mutav, then good. V'imla, but if not, ani matir es pesarchem, then I'm going to make your own flesh, people will eat it, it will be consumed. Kitzvos uchailos hasadi, your flesh will be like the gazelles and the hinds of the field. In other words, again, you are going to be destroyed by your enemies. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rebbe Lazar says, Kol hador be'eretz Yisrael, shoroi below oven, anybody who lives in Eretz Yisrael, it's like he lives without sin. Shenemar, Like the pasuk says, Uval Yomar Shachen, that the neighbor shouldn't say, the dweller shouldn't say, Cholisi, that I'm sick. Ha'am Hayoshe Ba Nesu Avon. The people that live there, their sins are forgiven. So you see that if you live in Eretz Yisrael, the sins are forgiven. Amar le Rava le Ravashi. So Rava said to Ravashi, Anon besov le choloy masnin Allah. We understand this pasuk talking about people who are ill. Means to say again, Ubal Yomer Shachen Chalisi, the person who says I am ill, that person is forgiven of his sins. And the Gemara continues, Amar Ravanon says, Kol HaKavor be'Eretz Yisrael, anyone who's buried in Eretz Yisrael, Ki'ilu Kavor tachas HaMizbeach, it's as though he's buried underneath the Mizbeach. Ksiv Hacha, it says over here, Mizbach Adama Taseli, it talks about the Mizbeach of Adama, of the earth. Ksiv Hasam, and it says over there, V'chiper Admaso Amo, his earth, his land will be a kapara for the nation. And again, the idea is, if he's buried in his land in Eretz Yisrael, it's like being buried under the Mizbeach. Ula have a ragel davesalak l'Eretz Yisrael. Ula would regularly go up to Eretz Yisrael. Nach nafshe b'chutz l'Eretz. It ended up that he died in chutz l'Eretz. Asu amru leil Rebbe Lazar. So they came and they told Rebbe Lazar, they said to Rebbe Lazar that Ula died outside of Eretz Yisrael. Amar, he said, Ant Ula, you Ula ala dama tamei tamas. You have died in this impure land. Amru lo, so they said to him, to Rebbe Lazar, Aronoba, but his casket is coming to Eretz Yisrael, so he'll be buried in Eretz Yisrael. It's not impure. Amar lahem, but he said back to them, Eino doma kol taso mechaim lekol taso lachar misa. You can't compare one who is taken while alive, meaning he dies in Eretz Yisrael, to somebody who's only being brought after he died, being brought to Eretz Yisrael. That's not the same thing. There was an individual who there was a Yevama, his sister-in-law, fell to him to do Yibam, and she was in Beichozah, it was in a faraway place. He came before Rabbi Chanina. Amar Lei said to him, what's the halacha? Can I go down there? Can I do Yibam down in Beichozah? Amar Lei said to him, Achiv Nasa Kusis, his brother, referring to this guy, your brother married a Kusis. It wasn't really a Kusis. The idea is he left the land to go to Beichozah. That wasn't appropriate. He married a Kusis Vameis and he died. Baruch HaMakom Shargu, Baruch Hashem that he died, that he was killed. V'hu Yered Achrav, and he wants to go follow down after him. You want to go follow your brother to that place where he shouldn't have went in the first place. That was not appropriate in the first place. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda says that Shmuel says, Kishem she'asr lotzeis me'eretz Yisrael leBavel, just like it's asr to leave Eretz Yisrael to go to Bavel, kach asr lotzeis mi Bavel l'shar ha'rotzo. So too it's asr to leave Bavel to go to other lands. Rabba v'Rav Yosef, the Armi Tarvayu, Rabba and Rav Yosef, they both say, afilu mi Pumbedisa leVeikuvi, even if a person goes from Pumbedisa to Beikuvi, that's a problem. There was an individual who left Pumbedisa, again that's Bavel proper, to go to Beikuvi, which was outside of Bavel. Shamte Rav Yosef, and Rav Yosef put that individual, he excommunicated that individual. There was an individual who went from Pumbedisa to Astunia also, he left Bavel, Shachav, he died. Amar Abaya said, if this person wanted, this Talmud Chacham could have lived. Had he not left Bavel, he would have lived. Rabba v'Rav Yosef, the Armi Tarvayu, Rabba and Rav Yosef, they both say, Ksherin shebebavel Eretz Yisrael kol tasan. Those who are kosher, the good people of Bavel, they will be taken care of by Eretz Yisrael. And Ksherin shebeshar aratzos, the good people in other lands, Bavel kol tasan, Bavel will protect them. Lamai. So now, what is this referring to? What specific issue are they being protected, or in what fashion are they being protected? If it means to say that their heritage is going to be protected, their yichus, their lineage rather, will be protected. V'yamar mar, but the master said, Kol ha'aratzos isol Eretz Yisrael, all lands. That's like it's isa to Eretz Yisrael, meaning to say that the lineage is not pure compared to Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael isa leBavel, and Eretz Yisrael the lineage is not pure when compared to Bavel, meaning Bavel is at an even higher level than Eretz Yisrael when it comes to yichus. Elolinian kvura. So rather, what the statement was really talking about burial, meaning to say the ksherin in Bavel, they're going to be buried in Eretz Yisrael. The ksherin in other lands, they will be buried in Bavel. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Yehuda says, Kol hadar beBavel, anyone who lives in Bavel, ki ilu dar be'Eretz Yisrael. It says, if they live in Eretz Yisrael. Shenamar, like the pasuk says, there's a pasuk in Zechariah, Hoy Tzion himolti yosheves bas Bavel. So you see the comparison there between those in Bavel and those in Eretz Yisrael. Amar Abaya says, Naktinon Bavel lo chazia chevle de Mashiach. We have a tradition that the people of Bavel, they won't see the birth pangs of the Mashiach, they won't experience those painful times before Mashiach. Tirgama and the Gemara explains that this is referring to Hutzal de Binyamin, specifically of the people who live in the city of Hutzal de Binyamin. The Karulei Karna de Shezavta, and they refer to Hutzal de Binyamin as the horn of salvation, because again, those people are protected from the Chevlei Mashiach. Amar Rabbi Elazar says, Me'isim shebechutz la'aretz einam chayim. Those people who die in chutz la'aretz, they're not going to come to life. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, V'nasati tzvi be'eretz chayim. And I will set my glory in the land of the living. Eretz shetzivyoni ba me'seh chayim. It means to say the land which contains my desire. So the dead in those lands, or in that land, they will be resurrected. She'ein tzivyoni ba, but the land which is not the land that I desire, ein me'seh chayim. So those who died in those lands, they will not come back to life. Meisiv Rabbi Abba Bar Mamul asked the following question on this. The pasuk says in Yeshaya, Yichyu Mesecha Nevelasi Yekumun. And so this pasuk talks about the resurrection of those who have died with a double language. Yichyu Mesecha Nevelasi Yekumun. 2 times the dead will come to life, and the corpses, they will arise. So my love, isn't the pasuk mean to say Yichyu Mesecha Mesim Sheberet Yisrael? The first part of the phrase Yichyu Mesecha, that refers to the dead in Eretz Yisrael. Nevelasi Yekumun Mesim Shebechutz La'aretz. And when it says Nevelasi Yekumun, that's a reference to those in Chutz La'aretz, the Mesim in Chutz La'aretz. So we see that even those in Chutz La'aretz are going to come back to life. And according to this, Umay v'nasati tzvi beretz chayim, what does it mean when it says, I will place glory in the land of life? That's not referring to the fact that only in Eretz Yisrael there's tchias hamesim. Rather, on Nebuchadnezzar u'dichsiv. The pasuk there is actually a reference to Nebuchadnezzar. Diyamar Rachmana, what the pasuk is saying is, my sina alai, I'm going to bring against them malka dekolol kitavia, a king who's as swift as a deer. And the word tzvi over there would be referring to a deer, would be referring to Nebuchadnezzar. And so the Gemara says, Amar Lei said to him, Rebbe Mikra Achar Ani Dorish. Rebbe, I'm darshaning a different pasuk, meaning there's a different pasuk that shows that it's only those mesim in Eretz Yisrael. The pasuk says, No sein neshama li'am oleha v'ruach laholchim ba. He gives the breath of life to the nation that's upon it, meaning in Eretz Yisrael. And again, the Spirit goes to those who are walking in Eretz Yisrael. And so therefore this pasuk shows that the concept of Tchias HaMesim is specifically for the mesim in Eretz Yisrael. And the Gemara says, Ve'elo haksiv neveilasi yikumun, but doesn't it say the pasuk we said before, neveilasi yikumun, that indicates it applies even to those outside of Eretz Yisrael? And to that, the Gemara says, Ahu b'nefalim hu dichsiv. That additional pasuk is not referring to the mesim outside of Eretz Yisrael, it's referring to the stillborns, that even the nefel, even they will come back to life. And the Gemara continues, Rabbi Abba Bar Mamul, now Rabbi Abba Bar Mamul, Hai Nosei Neshama Li'amoleh Mayavile. What does he do with the pasuk of Nosei Neshama Li'amoleh, which indicated that it's only in Eretz Yisrael? And the Gemara answers to that, Mi boy leilechid Rabbi Avo. He uses it for the teaching of Rabbi Avo, Diyamar Rabbi Avo, because Rabbi Avo says, Hafilu shivcha Kananis Shaberet Yisrael, even a maidservant, a Kananis in Eretz Yisrael, Muftach la, Shehi bas Olam Haba. It is guaranteed that she's going to have Olam Haba. Ksiv hacha li'amoleh, it says over here, li'amoleha. Uksiv hasam, and it says over there, Shavu lachem poim hachamor. It says, stay here with the donkey. And we darshan that to mean, Am hadom lechamor, the nation that is similar, that is compared to a donkey. And the Gemara is saying that even that nation, it uses the word im hachamor, am hadom lechamor, and it says over here la'am oleha, and therefore we understand that even the shifcha kananis, even someone who comes from that nation, is going to merit olam haba. And the Gemara continues, V'ruach laholchem ba. It says there's going to be a ruach for those who walk in it. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba says that Rabbi Yochanan says, Kol ha'mahalech arba amos be'eretz Yisrael. The pasuk means to say, laholchem ba. Anybody who walks 4 amos in Eretz Yisrael, muftach lo, it's guaranteed for him, shehu ben olam haba, that he too will merit olam haba. And the Gemara continues, Ul Rabbi Elazar, but according to Rabbi Elazar, tzadikim shebechutz la'aretz einam chayim. Are we even saying that tzadikim, the righteous in chutz la'aretz, they won't come to life? Amar Rabbi Elazar says, Al Yedei Gilgal, no, they will, because their bodies will roll to Eretz Yisrael. But the Gemara continues, Ma'askif lo Rabbi Abba Salarava. Rabbi Abba Salarava asks on this, Gilgal at tzadikim tzaru, if they're rolling for the righteous, that's going to be very painful for them. And so Amar Abaye answers, Abaye says, Mechilos nasos lem bekarka. There will be tunnels that will be created in the land, and that's how it will happen in a way that is not painful. And the Gemara continues, the Pasuk says, Unisasani Mitzrayim ukvartani bikfurasam. Yaakov Avinu says, take me from Mitzrayim and bury me by the area where my forefathers are buried. Amar Karna says, Devarim bego, there are inner matters over here, there are secrets over here. Yodea haya Yaakov Avinu shetzadik gomer haya. Yaakov Avinu knew that he was a full tzaddik. V'yemesim shebechutzlar etzchayim. So if the dead in chutzlar, they also come back to life. Lama hitriach esbanav. Why did he bother his children that they should carry him to Eretz Yisrael? And the answer is Shema lo yizkel mechilos. He was afraid maybe he wouldn't merit these tunnels, and that's why he asked that he be brought to Eretz Yisrael. Kayotze b'davar Omer. Similarly, we find the following: Vayishava Yosef is b'nei Yisrael v'gomer. Yosef also, he made b'nei Yisrael promise to take him to Eretz Yisrael. Amar b'chanina says Devarim shebego. These are inner matters. Yodea haya Yosef ba'atzmo. Yosef knew about himself, Shetzadik Gomer Haya, that he was a full tzaddik, V'meisum shebechutzlarz chayim, and if the dead in chutzlarz come to life, Lama etriach esechav arba meos parsa. Why did he bother his brothers to take him 400 parsa? And the answer again is Shema lo yizkel mechilos. Maybe he wouldn't merit for the tunnels. And the Gemara continues, Sholchu elei achui l'Rabba. The brothers of Rabba, they sent him the following message: Yodeo haya Yaakov Shetzadik Gomer Haya v'chulu. First, they taught him the teaching we just had above, that Yaakov knew he was a tzaddik Gomer, and then Ilfa Mosif Devarim. Ilfa added to this story as follows: there was a Maisa, there was an incident with an individual who really wanted to be with a particular woman. Ubikesh Laird, and he wanted to descend, he wanted to leave Eretz Yisrael to be with this woman. Kevon Shashama Kazos, but when he heard these great things about Eretz Yisrael, Gilgal Biatzmad Yomoso, he contained himself until the day of his death, and he stayed away from leaving Eretz Yisrael. He stayed away from this particular woman. And the letter to Rabbah continued, even though you're a great wise person, there's no comparison of learning one who learns by himself to one who learns from his Rebbe. If you're going to say that you don't have a Rebbe and that's why you're not coming to Eretz Yisrael, there is going to be a Rebbe for you in Eretz Yisrael. And who is the Rebbe that you can have in Eretz Yisrael? You can learn from Rebbe Yochanan. And if you don't come up to Eretz Yisrael, they warned him to be careful about the following three things. Al-tarba b'yeshiva, don't sit too often, she'yeshiva kasha l'tachtonios, because sitting is bad for hemorrhoids. Al-tarba b'amida, but don't stand too often, she'amida kasha l'lei, because standing too much is bad for the heart. Al-tarba b'halicha, and don't walk too much, she'halicha kasha l'einayim, because walking too much is bad for the eyes. Ela shlish b'yeshiva, shlish b'amida, shlish b'hilach. Rather, a third of the time should be sitting, a third of the time should be standing, and a third of the time should be walking. Kol yeshiva sheini masmicha amida nocha heimenu. Any sitting that you don't lean, so it's better to stand. The Gemara says, Amida sakadaytach. Do you really think it's better to stand? Ve'amart amida kasha l'lei. But you just said before that standing is bad for the heart. Ela yeshiva. Rather, what we mean to say is, if you have sitting, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Kuf Yud Aleph Amud Beis.